Modern day gaming has presented us with many cool mechanics.
A little help, please.
One mechanic in particular was so cool and so unique that Warner Bros. Actually went ahead and patented it in an attempt to prevent other people from using it. That system, of course, is the Nemesis System from the Shadow of Mordor and Shadow of War games. Fun fact, that patent is actually titled Asynchronous Generation of Non-Player Characters, Grids, and Peer-to-Peer Interactions in Multiplayer Games. It's a bit of a mouthful. Though the patent does exist, it doesn't stop people from creating similar systems, and one such attempt at this was one that I found while browsing the Baldur's Gate 3 Nexus mods page. The mod is called Requiem for the Absolute Dynamic Encounters. As soon as I read through the description for this mod, I knew I had to check it out. And so folks at home, I hope you will join me on my journey to beat Baldur's Gate 3 while being hunted with a similar mechanic to the Nemesis system. Before we get started though, my dog needs his tooth pulled, and it turns out that that is a very expensive thing to do, so let's get a word from today's sponsor, and then we will get into things.
Shah's blessings upon you.
Oh, hey Shadowheart.
What's on your mind?
Not much really, just playing a game on my phone. It actually just got a huge update. You've heard of The Wizard of Oz, right?
Of course.
Of course you have. Well, some of the characters from that story have made their way to the land of Teleria for the all-new Raid Shadow Legends Echoes of Oz event. During this event, you can unlock the brand new legendary champion Dorothy Gale totally for free by logging in for 7 days. You'll also be able to take on Azilda the Wicked in a limited time event dungeon. This is one of my favorite things about Raid. They're always doing some big events and adding some sweet new champions. If you are new to Raid, then you can scan the QR code on screen or use my link in the description or pinned comment to instantly get legendary champion Narma the Returned. Plus, you can use one of these codes for another legendary, GETALICE, KITTYCUT, SUPERVICTORY, or Wrath. Personally, as a cat guy, I'm picking up the Cheshire Cat. Then log in for 7 days to get Dorothy Gale and reach level 15 to unlock the epic champion Chonoru. That's 3 legendary and 1 epic champions for free, so scan the QR code on screen or use my link below to get started. Thank you to Raid for supporting the channel. Now back to the video. Now real quick, before I make my character, I just wanted to give a heads up that I added a few other mods to keep things interesting while I made my way through Baldur's Gate 3 for the 700th time. Nothing crazy, just the 5E subclasses combined mods, as well as the Fades equipment distribution mods. The Requiem for the Absolute page also says it's fully compatible with mods that increase the player's level cap. And in fact, it has some unique stuff that only appears with these sorts of mods, so I had to make sure I added one of those as well. And some basic quality of life stuff. Onto my character though, today I will be playing as the Dump Urge, aka the Urge to Dump. I almost always play as a tiefling lady, so I got brave this time and decided I'd try something a little different, not just with the race, but also with the class, because I will be going through the game as a barbarian. I've started many a playthrough as a barbarian, but I don't think I've ever really stuck with one, other than in this other video where I just had to press 1 the whole time, and I had no agency over things in that video, so I'd like to give it a real shot. As the game began, the first thing I noticed was a new condition called the Absolute's Attention 1. The Nexus page explains that as things go on, this attention level will grow, so I'll have to keep an eye on that. Making my way through the Nautiloid was pretty normal, though it was cool to just rip the lid off of Shadowheart's pod, but I ran into a really strange problem once I reached the helm. On Commander Zulk's turn, he just kept attacking. He attacked, I counted, 12 fucking times. That scared the bejesus out of me, but I wrote it off as a glitch, and even though Zulk also let the chopper sing on Lae'zel, I managed to reach the transponder before he could get me or Shark. Honestly, he kind of did me a favor by killing Lae'zel. I mean, not because I wanted to die, but when she does die on the ship, she spawns right next to Shadowheart, so I get to skip the whole freeing her from the trap thing. And now, look, this video isn't about all the little stuff we normally go over. If I did the whole, I did this, then this happened, song and dance that I usually do, then we're gonna be here for 45 minutes going over the same stuff I have done 100 times already. Instead, I'll hit you with the highlights and then we'll slow down once we kind of reach something of note related to the mod. With that said, I sent Astari into camp, I freed Gale from his magical rock, just realized magical rock sounds like an allegory for crack. I cleared out the entirety of the ruined chapel area, and then I made my way to the grove, which, was under attack. I personally got fucked right up during this encounter, and also, once again, ran into into that weird glitch where certain enemies got to attack way too much. I wrote it off again, but I'll come back to that in a little bit. All of that brought me to level 3, where I decided to try out the Juggernaut subclass for myself, and that's what I'm going to stick with for the rest of the video. I went to bed shortly thereafter and was kind of waiting for something cool to happen, but nothing did. That, though, just might be my own fault. You see, the Requiem for the Absolute Dynamic Encounters mod, which I will henceforth be referring to as the Requiem mod because it's a long fucking name, adds in events where your camp might be attacked at night or ambushed when you leave camp in the morning. That does not happen in certain safe areas though, and because I was standing like right outside of the grove when I rested, I may have screwed that up, but all good, we'll just keep on trucking. I spent pretty much the entire next day just running some errands in the grove. There's quite a bit of stuff to do here, and the only thing of real note was I picked up Will and put him on my team instead of Gale. Usually my party is Shart, Lae'zel, and Gale, but like I said before, I'm trying to be brave today. Speaking of, I realized if you come over to this spot in the grove and have feather falling, you can just jump all the way over to Karlach. That is so crazy. I have never thought of doing that before. I took her in place of Lae'zel for now, and we beat up the fake paladins, killed some gnolls, saved Benrin and Floric, I murdered Alfira, and still nothing new had come from the Requiem mod yet. The next day was full of killing, which brought us to level 4, and then inside of the Blighted Village, I convinced the ogres to work for me, and that'll be important in a second. I was getting kind of worried that the Requiem mod wasn't working, and I figured maybe stopping by the goblin camp and getting brain blasted by the Absolute might be some kind of trigger to get things going, so I did exactly that. I then hit the sack, I saw my guardian that night, yeah I know, big fucking shock that she's a bad bitch tiefling, but then when I left camp the next morning, something exciting happened. As we loaded in, a little mark popped up on the map, and when I turned to look at it, I saw a big pack of gnolls. Finally, something was happening. My team is still fairly weak though, so I thought this might be a good time to summon the ogres. I usually get this horn and then forget to use it. I did so, and they completely fucked me. They got distracted and started a fight with the goblins, which made everything a much larger and more chaotic mess than it already was. The gnolls spent a decent amount of time handing me my own ass, but after getting some lucky shots in on their commander, the mark of the Absolute was broken and the rest of the gnolls seemed much worse off because of it. I slowly picked them off, and once they were all gone, I helped the ogres finish the fight against the goblins. And then as a reward, I let them lick Will's meat. I'm gonna not dwell on that any longer. That was a pretty ugly situation, which actually made for a really solid introduction to the mod, to be honest with you. It basically says, hey, if you want to rest, go ahead, but if you do, you better be ready for what happens next. I made note of their commander's name, but I actually never saw that one again. I got back to business, and for the third time now, I encountered that glitch where certain enemies just get to attack seemingly infinitely, or at least until someone dies, and I spent 3 fucking hours trying to figure out what was wrong, and to be honest with you, I don't really know what caused it. But just in case any of you folks run into this same issue someday, what I did to fix it was simply delete all of the mod packs, verify the integrity of my files on Steam, and then re-download all the mods. It took a while, it was annoying, but it worked, and it set everything back to normal. With things back to normal, I backtracked a bit and spent the rest of my resources that day killing some goblins and such. I long rested once again, and when I left camp, there was a battle going on not too far from me. That battle ended in literal seconds though, like it just in a flash, and so by the time I came creeping up on them, the vast majority of the enemies from that warband had simply despawned. This is probably a good thing, you know, it's giving you the option to duck enemies if you feel like you need to, but this whole damn video is about this mod, so I was a little bummed that I missed out on some good action. Frankly though, I was just relieved to know that the mod was working and all I needed to do was be patient. I continued on, terrorizing the entirety of Act 1 everywhere I went, and finally hit level 5 after beating up on some redcaps. Level 5 is when your team starts feeling genuinely tough, and we tested that out on poor Gandrel, who got a fucking train ran on him. I did some more shenanigans before taking another long rest, spending that night with the love of my life as per usual, and in the morning we got ambushed once again. This time it was a... oh shit, what did I call him in the first Baldur's Gate 3 video I ever made? A group of goblins? Huh, what would you call a group of goblins? A gaggle? A herd? A school? Well, okay, definitely not a school. These suckers are sharing one brain cell. How about we call them a stench for now? A stench. God, that's good. Go me. Anywho, this time it was a stench of goblins and their leader named Ilmar. Ilmar is a name that is going to come up quite a bit, so keep that in the back of your mind. I once again prioritized taking out the commander, thus weakening the rest of the team, and that worked like a charm. Absolute 0, dumpster 3. For a while after that, I went on a streak of boring nights and mornings. I slaughtered everyone in the goblin camp, I partied with the tieflings, I beat Ethel into submission, and saved Mayrina in one fell swoop. I absolutely dunked on Voss conversationally, hitting nasty roll after nasty roll, and I slept one more time before I moved on to the Underdark. And I'm glad I did, because in the morning we were under attack once again, and check it out. Ilmar had before been killed by slashing damage, and so this new ambush now had resistance to slashing damage. How fucking cool is that? The mod description didn't lie at all. The Absolute has noticed you. Its army now travels the roads in search of your party, and it remembers what happens when it finds you. And it does remember. It's showing it right there. That's awesome. Well, surely out of curiosity, I gave them something to really remember. Though it didn't kill the commander of this ambush, Karlach's sacrifice did destroy the majority of the enemies, and the commander this time around was Sorina, who died trying to run away, and look at that, we now have the Absolute's attention level 2. Sweet. Unfortunately though, we returned to a period of dormancy from the mod that lasted much longer. In fact, I did basically everything in the Underdark and everything in the Mountain Pass before seeing anything from this mod again. Eventually, I changed the hunt intensity setting from standard to the highest setting, hunted. I went to sleep to see if it changed anything, and I'm still not sure if it was that change or just raw dumb luck, but that night, our camp got raided. Not just outside the camp, I mean the actual camp was under attack. And the squad we were up against had some serious muscle this time. A Drider, some phase spiders, a couple of goblins, and a few cultists. One of those cultists was the silencer of the Absolute, who apparently was sent after reports of arcane fire, whatever that means, and this annoying bastard has the sole job of counterspelling you as much as they can, and I can only assume that they sent this person because of my nuke strategy. Maybe the mod just thought that the huge explosion came from a fire spell or something, but even though it wasn't totally accurate, this is still a really cool addition, and one that definitely annoyed me, in a good way. They didn't turn out to be quite as dangerous as I thought. In fact, the Drider couldn't hit the broadside of your mom, which is every side, but with the battle finished, I got the names of the commanders, Drevin and Selvin. I don't really know why I told you their names, because they don't come back. As we head now into Act 2, I would like to remind you that I'm not going to go over everything I did, because once again, we hit a long stretch of nothing special happening. And going into this video, I was kind of hoping it would be pretty constant and consistent stuff going on, but ultimately, what I realized is that if this were the case, this mod would be really fucking annoying. As it is now, this mod doesn't command the attention of your entire playthrough. You're still playing the normal game, you're just getting some special events every now and then. This may not be incredible for my selfish content creation purposes, but as a functional mod, this is exactly what it should be. And so I just want to make it clear that I'm not complaining at all. I actually think the mod makers set things up perfectly, and they deserve to be praised accordingly. That being said, by the time I saw another Requiem ambush, I had taken care of the 3 Thorns and reached level 8. The attack happened inside the House of Healing, and it wasn't really targeted for me, I don't think. Some Flaming Fist were throwing down with the Horde already and kind of getting their asses beat. I jumped in to help, of course, but I may or may not have blown some of them up in the process. This fight was odd though, because Ilmar and Sorina were familiar names, but the actual characters and like their models and stuff were different, and there were 2 Ilmars. This makes me wonder if the naming system for the mod maybe got messed up somehow, but whether that is the case or not, there wasn't really anything too special about this battle otherwise. Though the Flaming Fist did attack me once the cultists were gone, but I kind of deserve that considering I blew at least one of them 2 bits. I got a little crazy after that, and for some reason decided to take on the entirety of Moonrise, which took quite a bit of time and energy to accomplish, but it did bring me to level 9. I also tried to break the Shadow Curse, but I messed it up somehow. It glitched and got like soft locked, so sorry Shadow Curse lands, I guess you're stuck being the Shadow Curse lands forever. But after getting some rest once again, I was ambushed by a squad that was quite a step above the rest thus far. Like kind of by a lot. You see, a big disadvantage you have by being, you know, ambushed is that unless you are immune to the surprised condition, like old Dumperge because he's a barbarian, then your first turn is getting skipped. So by the time Lae'zel's actual first turn even rolled around, she was down. Then on Will's turn, he got a tummy ache and couldn't make any actions, so they just fucking killed him. And to top things off, the person with the Mark of the Absolute, this giant skeleton guy, the one you have to kill to disrupt the rest of them, them just ran away and left me to deal with the other enemies. Well, needless to say, the next few rounds sucked ass, but Shart and I somehow managed to hold things down and come out without getting TPK'd. And for the nerds keeping track, the commanders that time were Ysolde and Vesper. After that mess, I got another long break before another attack. So long that I managed to do the entirety of the Gauntlet of Shar, take care of Cathurkel, kill the Githyanki ambush, and see Shadowheart's new do. When the attack did come, I actually would have totally missed it if it weren't for this little map marker ding, because it happened kind of far away. I ran over to the brewery, where they had showed up for some reason, but the battle had begun without me like the one in the House of Healing. This one wasn't nearly as stacked and crazy as the last one, but I did notice that in this attack there were seemingly no new conditions or effects on the enemies. Just a pretty plain Jane squad of baddies. 4 of them this time had names, which is a first, but I think that only Ysolde was the one that I had seen before. But that pretty much is it for Act 2. I wish I had been able to cure the Shadow Curse, but I guess it didn't really want to be cured, I don't know. Act 3 starts pretty hot and heavy story-wise as per usual, and I managed to get quite... Whoa, I lost my voice there, that was crazy. And I managed to get quite a bit done on my first day in Rivington, but when I did eventually take a nappy poo, the attack that came after was also hot and also heavy. There were some familiar faces, but there was also a necromancer, which I think was new, and a distinct rise in quality of the overall attackers. No more goblins or winged horrors. This time it was literally only cultists, and those guys hit pretty damn hard. And they've got a few new features like Hardened and Watchful, which means they are still evolving, and that's really cool. Evolved or not though, the 5 named enemies they had still weren't quite up to snuff. And then I went on what was absolutely the longest stretch of peace I had thus far. I had finished things up in Rivington and Worms Crossing and taken care of plenty of stuff inside the city proper. When the next attack did eventually come, it presented me with a pretty interesting puzzle to solve. It happened right inside Sorceress Sundries, which meant I couldn't just go around throwing fireballs or explosives all willy-nilly, otherwise the Flaming Fist would show up and attack me and not them, and that would be really annoying. If you know me, you know I love AoE attacks, so this was a physically painful experience. Thankfully, the enemies themselves were fairly weak, but I did notice that some of them had the magic resistance feature, which was new, but they were lacking some of the other stuff that some of them had, like the slash resistance or other features, so I'm not really sure how this all works. That day kind of flew by, ending with a messy encounter with Dolar, and I figured another rest wouldn't hurt after that, but boy was I wrong. It hurt quite a lot. The squad waiting for me in the park was a pretty brutal one. There were 2 Justiciar Crusaders and a slathering of other relatively strong douchebags. I hit a nasty Mind Blast to start things off though, stunning both of the Crusaders, and then I started mowing them down with AoE fire attacks. The first Crusader went down pretty easily, but the second one took quite a bit of time, and by the end of it, we were all like at least half dead. But hey, that's what I get for resting. Oh, and we are at Absolute Attention 3 now, which is kind of exciting. The next 2 days were a little stressful, mostly because of the Iron Throne, where I managed to thwart Mizora's bitch ass, and because of Saravok. Although to be fair, I was kind of scared of him for no reason. He got pwned badly. I slept in his place, which of course meant when I woke up, there was an ambush waiting for me. This fight wasn't incredibly notable, mostly because I have fought these same cultist dudes like 100 times now, and Will was really the only one to sustain any serious damage. The 2 names were Elsbeth and Vexana, 2 new names and 2 names that don't show up again. And then after that, I once again went a clean 2 days before another Requiem ambush. In those days, I managed to finish out Shadowheart's quest, as well as kill Cazador. When I did sleep again and got attacked in the morning, I thought I was a genius, but I was not. See, I purposely rested in a populated area to see if I could get some backup if an attack came. I even wrote in my notes, big attack, but I got lots of backup because I'm smart. Do you want to know what my next note says? My backup is killing me. In the moment, I had no idea why they were attacking me, but upon review, I did damage some of them when I raged, so this makes a lot more sense in hindsight. To make matters worse, this was the first appearance of a Death Knight in one of these squads. One of, if not my favorite D&D monsters. Not exactly someone you want to be going head-to-head with, though. He demonstrated that with a Hellfire Orb that decimated my team's collective health, but don't worry, he didn't just have one of those, he had another one locked and loaded, and that one was just as bad. The fist really started targeting me after that, and I decided that this would be the first ambush that I would have to run from. That Death Knight, that guy is the guy to beat. I can be happy with this run when that motherfucker goes down. Well, when I returned to the city later on after healing up, one of the Crusaders was still there and terrorizing people, but fuck them, I just left them to deal with that. Then on my way to take care of the Steel Watch Foundry, I stopped and tried to help Volo, but for literally the first time and the only time in this entire playthrough, I got randomly ambushed in the middle of the day. They were dumb enough to get all grouped up though, so I just started blowing them up. Oh, and speaking of blowing up, RIP my man Volo. When the fight ended, I recognized two of the commander's names, Thessaly and Ilmar. I actually wrote in my notes after that fight, I think Ilmar is my rival, like the Death Knight guy is who I want to run the Fade with. We'll see about that, but after I blew the Foundry sky high, I went to sleep. In the morning, there was no attack, but I did notice that I had officially reached Absolute's Attention level 4, which, as far as I can tell, is the highest level. Although, don't quote me on that, I'm just guessing. I went for Gortash's neck that day, and it was a bit tougher than I had anticipated, so I hit the sack once again, and guess who was back in the morning? The Death Knight was back, and I swear his Hellfire Orb hit even harder than it did the first time around. And honestly, even though I was concerned they might start attacking me eventually, I was glad that there were a few Flaming Fist around to distract the enemies with, otherwise they might have just mowed us down. The rest of the day was spent fighting Answer, and once that fight was finished, I slept again and had yet another ambush waiting for me, this time with a mix of devilish creatures. Oh, and Ilmar, of course. I wasn't noticing any new features on the enemies for the most part, but once again, the average threat level of the individual enemies has gone way up from what it used to be. I wasn't letting Ilmar's bum ass beat me though, so I cleaned things up here and got to work getting my last Netherstone. In fact, the duel I had with Orin was low-key kind of sad because I just beat the dog shit out of that girl. Like, it was not close. It was not fair. But hey, that's the third Netherstone, which technically means I can beat the game now. And I did say I'd be satisfied once I beat the Death Knight. But he beat me the first time, I beat him the second time, which means we're 1-1. So to finish things off, I wanted to face off with him one more time to settle the score. I basically just started spamming rests, and eventually I ran into some ballers and some nameless cultists, but they were fodder compared to who I was looking for. He must have heard my pleas though, because once again I went to bed and got attacked in my camp for the second and final time. Final because the Death Knight was back. He had an insane feature this time, which I frankly don't really even understand. I think it just means he can keep attacking me if he hits me or something, but he also had all the features that other enemies had gained throughout the entire journey. His first turn could have gone significantly worse. He wasted a Hellfire Orb on myself and Jaheira, who was standing there for some reason, and then Will landed a big fireball to finish 3 of the enemies off, and Lae'zel got to work laying into the Death Knight. Although the dump urge, well, I guess he gave into his urge to dump, and he looks like he did it in his pants. I don't know what the fuck he's doing. The second Hellfire Orb landed pretty hard on Lae'zel, but didn't have much effect on my red Dragonborn. I know he's more black than red. You probably assumed he was black this whole time, but that's racist. Will fireballed once again, Lae'zel ran over, and her armor's moonbeam killed the Crusader before using one last Divine Smite to finish things off for good. GG's Death Knight, and as far as the mod goes, that's about it. I believe I went up against the toughest enemies the mod had to offer, at least according to the description on the mod page, which were very tough to be fair, and so I felt ready to go take down the Netherbrain, which I did. And so, folks at home, we have come to the end of our journey. Honestly, I didn't think this sort of system made sense for Baldur's Gate 3 at first, but after playing through it, I can confidently say that I was totally wrong. The best kind of wrong. The kind of wrong that makes you happy to be wrong. This mod is awesome, and it seems like the mod maker has plans to keep working on it, which makes me really happy. Maybe we'll have to revisit it someday if they do keep working on it, but who knows? And of course, before we go, I would like to once again thank Raid for supporting the channel. Check out that new Echoes of Oz event. I think their interpretations of the characters are actually really neat, and sponsors like them are why I get to play video games for a living instead of doing anything useful to society. That's it for me though, gang. Thank you all again for watching. Subscribe if you haven't, and I hope to see you all next time. GG's, everybody.